Welcome back to Where Are They Now podcast. My guest today played on the first ladies only, well, of course it would be ladies only. Big Break 3 was ladies only, first aired on February 8th, 2005. The show was filmed in Kingsmill Resort in Williamsburg, Virginia. And the winner of this edition received exemptions into two LPGA events, and I believe a celebrity tournament as well, the American Century. She also participated in the Big Break reunion, and we're going to ask Cindy if she'll come back and talk. We're going to do a live streaming reunion show where you guys listening and watching will be able to live stream your questions, and we're going to have kind of a round table of 6 or 7 folks from the reunion show. And I think we can convince Cindy to be part of that as well when we do that show. So we're going to focus on the ladies only show today. Tons of talent. I think she surprised a lot of people on this show, in my opinion, and watching this show. I mean, every time I turned around, she was getting immunity wins and all that stuff. Tons of talent, really good demeanor on the course. And I'm really happy to have her join the show. So it's with great pleasure to welcome Cindy Miller to Where Are They Now podcast.
Thanks, Nick.
How are you?
Thrilled to be here. I'm doing well.
Great. Good to hear it. So, Cindy, we start off all of our Where Are They Now podcasts with questions that we came in from our listeners and viewers, and we had a ton of them, and they're all over the map, so bear with us, but we'll just jump right in.
Okay.
First question was from Mike in your neck of the woods, well, almost, in Rochester, New York. How much did the cameras distract you during the game, during the match, and were there any delays due to filming?
Oh my God. That was like the biggest deal. So the cameras, you knew they were going to be in your face. And that was part of the reason that I wanted to be on the show, because I needed to learn how not to choke my guts out. And the funny thing is that our son, we have 3 children, and our middle son was playing golf at Ohio State University at the time. And he's like, oh, that show's stupid. You shouldn't do that. And, I think he was afraid his mother was going to embarrass him. Right. And so all I thought about when I saw all those cameras and, there were like 100 crew members standing there was, okay, now it's clenched butt cheeks. Don't choke. Don't embarrass your kid. And then I was like, okay, I would do this little practice swing, and I call it hairy, sweaty armpits. So I would pretend I'm sweating like a pig, and I would brush the grass with my club head, because I knew that if I got really tight, my arms would be tight, and I would dig the china, and then I would look like a jerk, and then I would embarrass my son. So I knew they were there, and then I tried to pretend they were trees. And it was scary. But the biggest issue of the whole show was they made it look seamless, and there was so much waiting that you could really let it bother you. I mean, It was like, okay, hurry up now. Okay, wait, stop. This isn't right. We have to do this. We have to. So it was terrible. A lot of waiting.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. I've done a dozen or so interviews with big breakers, and one of the common themes was the pressure. And we talked a lot about what manifested the pressure and all different opinions. And I want your feedback on this. The main kind of 3 or 4 things I got were, one, don't underestimate the talent that was there, because people dealt with the cameras, they dealt with the weather, they dealt with all these things differently. So one was your opponents. I mean, this is effectively a game show, and even the people that weren't playing bad. I talked to people. Mark Silver said I hit it at a right time. I was playing really well going into the show. Brian from Greenbrier said, Brian Cooper said, I wish I was just playing better. I wasn't playing. I was practicing before weeks before I got there, and I wasn't on. I wasn't playing my game, and it kind of continued there. And so, but even the folks from viewers like us watching, the folks that weren't playing well are chipping in from here or hitting 30-foot putts, surprisingly in different challenges. So it didn't necessarily mean somebody was riding from the beginning to the end and effectively going to win it. I can tell you that, who did I talk to the other day? Andy Walker. I thought he was the best player on tee to green, in my opinion, on the Ireland show, but Mark Murphy won. There's a lot of that. Charlie Harrington, really good player. He came in 4th. Yourself, for example, winning all the immunities. And we're going to talk about that in a second. The other thing is, so that was one, the talent. The other thing was the weather and the cameras just being there, just the fact that they're there. And then I think the factor that I really didn't consider, but it was a reoccurring theme from everybody, was the delays. right? Mark Murphy really spelled it out. Playing in Ireland in the weather, 50-degree winds, pouring rain, freezing cold. He said in his Irish brogue to me, Nick, I took a shot. I sat on a bench. I wrapped in blankets in the cold. 90 minutes later, they said, Mark, one more shot. And he came up and had to take another shot. That's unbelievable. I mean, that's just, so talk a little bit about that pressure on all those, ways.
Well, one of the things, we would go upstairs in the clubhouse and they would say, okay, you're going to sit here and wait. And then when they came to get us, they would say, you should practice a shot anywhere from 150 yards and in. So they never told you what you had to do next. They wanted to keep you guessing. So it's like, okay, this is kind of a game, and you could get a little ticked off about it, but you were out of control. They were in control. So that was the thing that bothered me, is you never knew what the next challenge was, and you never knew where you were going and what was going to happen. And you had to sit in this little room, and we'd all sit and talk and, hang out with each other, which was fine because everybody on our show was pretty cool. And it was just the unknowing and being out of control that drove me nuts, because control is one of my favorite words, I must tell you.
Let's see. Sarah asks, take us through a typical day. It seems like you guys were up in the morning. Often we'd see the cameras showing you guys lined up, and it was still dark outside in the morning. So tell us about a typical day.
Yeah, you were up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. Had breakfast. Now we had breakfast at the house that we stayed at, so that wasn't the case with all the shows. And we had no idea what we were doing. And then we would get bussed over to the course, and then we would be taken up into the room above the clubhouse, and then we had to sit there and wait and wait and wait and wait and wait and wait and wait. And then they would come in and say, okay, now you're going to go to the range. You should practice your shot anywhere from 0 to 150 yards. And then we would do the show, if you will, for the day. And then we would come back and they'd say, okay, take a shower. We're going to dinner. And then we'd go to dinner. And then when we got back from dinner, we all had to go one at a time to do the interview afterwards. So it was like, really? How long can this go on? And it was 2 weeks. So shut up and suck it up, and you got to do what they tell you.
Good segue right into, excuse me, Dan from Cleveland's question. Were you sworn to secrecy and not allowed to talk about the show once you were selected, and then even all the way through the process until it premiered?
Yes, we had to sign contracts and not allowed to tell anybody anything.
Was that difficult? I imagine you.
Yes, because, here was the beautiful thing. Because I live in Buffalo, once Labor Day hits, everybody goes back to school when it's normal, right? And so I could die in October and November and no one would know or care. And this was filmed at the end of October, beginning of November. So nobody knew, nobody wanted a lesson. They didn't care if I was here. So I was gone for 2 weeks, and it was like perfect. So if it had been in the spring, I might not have chosen to do the show, even if they said you've been chosen. So it worked out fine for me because nobody knew, nobody cared. Now, when the show was airing in February, everyone was like, oh, what happened? What happened? I said, I have no idea. I can't tell you, and we would all go to a bar every Tuesday night when it was airing, and we had these big parties. I mean, we had a ball. It was I knew how lucky I was to be chosen. So it was so much fun, and I didn't really care. Nobody assumed that I would play decent because I was a token old lady of the show. So it was fine. It was fun.
That's awesome. Bill from Houston, Texas asks, Cindy, were Danielle and Pam always going at it, or did they stay away from each other and have less conflict?
Well, you could, yes and no. You couldn't really stay away from each other because you were staying in the same house.
Yeah. And
both of them were so, what's the word? Stubborn, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it's like, come on, guys, stop. It's not that important, right?
Yeah.
So there was a lot of tension.
Interesting. Let's see. Carol from Pittsburgh, PA says, we see you guys on the range a lot. Did you have the opportunity to practice challenges before filming?
Well, they just let us warm up. We had no idea what the challenge was. It
So you
wasn't
don't.
like, oh, you get to go hit balls for an hour.
Right.
No, you get 20 minutes to warm up and then we're going.
Got it. Okay. And final question from Seattle, and I think it's Gretchen or Kristen. I can't read it. Thanks, Mike. When players are eliminated from the show, where do they go? Do they stay in the hotel? Do they get to play golf during the day? What happens to the players?
Well, at first we didn't know. We thought, where'd you take them to jail? Where'd they go? And then we found that they were at another condo in Williamsburg, right across, like two streets over. And when we would go home back and forth, they would come back out and wave to us like, hi, we're trapped like rats in this house over here. And I thought, oh, how bored is you're going to have terrible days. But they did have fun. I think they went and had massages and did other things while we were like still freaking out.
Jeez. We're going to work in some quick hitter questions as we talk to Cindy. I want to remind everybody, if you have a question for your favorite big breaker, send it to us through all the social media channels. Everything is Where Are They Now podcast. You guys know that by now. Where Are They Now podcast.com. And you could send us an email, Where Are They Now podcast@gmail.com. Next week, we have a ton of stuff coming on. Double D Don Donatello, the runner-up in Vegas. Mark Silvers, the champion of Greenbrier. Mark Murphy, the champion of Big Break Ireland, and many, many more Big Break stars for you guys to watch. So, Cindy, let's talk about the origin of this. How did this all take place? You were a golfer. You were a teacher. You had all these things going on. How did you find out about Big Break? How did this all start?
Well, from playing on the tour, I lost my card after 3 seasons. So of the best in the world, I was one of the worst. And I married PGA Tour player Alan Miller. We're the only married couple in the world that have played on all 4 major tours: PGA Tour, LPGA Tour, Champions Tour, Legends Tour.
Wow.
And I was sitting in my sweatshop. I have an embroidery business. And I was having a little bit of a pity party, and it was a Monday morning, and I was reading the Monday morning paper, which is what you used to do when there was no, not a lot of internet. And you would look at the scores. So I was looking at the scores, and all of a sudden I saw that there was a Legends Tour for former LPGA Tour players. I was like, what? What's that? So I looked, and I saw all my friends that I played college golf with and played on the tour with. And one name stood out, Nancy Lopez, and I looked across to see what she shot. And she shot 85 one round. And she made $3,000. And I'm given, 12 golf lessons a day and sewing shirts for Augusta National, which I'm not whining about, but I was working like a crazy woman. So I picked up the phone and I called the Legends Tour and I said, hey, can I play? No, you're not good enough. I'm like, well, what do I have to do? Well, you have to qualify. Okay, where? Well, you have to go do this. How many spots? 1. Okay. So I hang up the phone and I'm like, okay, you're 48 years old. You played the tour 25 years ago, the best in the world. You were the worst. What are you going to do? Well, then I go home and I get an email from the Golf Channel, and I had seen Big Break 1. Never saw Big Break 2. And the email said there was going to be a women's only Big Break. And I thought, the little voice in my head said, you should apply to be on the show. Because if you want to win a tournament on the Legends Tour, we both know that if you were standing on the 18th hole, tied for the lead, had to hit a shot over water with thousands of people watching you, you would puke. You would choke your guts out. Good point. Well, then the other little voice said, well, you don't want to win an exemption on the LPGA Tour. You can't really play. You don't hit it far enough, blah, 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 blah. Shut up, apply for the show. So I did. And I applied, and then I forgot that I applied. I filled out all this paperwork, and I was coming back from giving a golf clinic at the LPGA Tour event at Canadian Women's Open, and I get a call from the Golf Channel, and they said, hey, do you want to apply to be on the show or audition? And I'm like, well, where is it? When is it? And it was on a Friday, July 31st. I don't teach on Fridays. I had to fly to Orlando. I got a round trip flight for $200, which was cheap, right? I could stay at my brother's house. So I'm like, yeah, I'll do this. But then the thought came to me, do you really want the whole world to know your story? So my husband, who played on the tour, his whole life, again, his father was like, you're not really good enough. He was on the 2 Walker Cup teams, a World Cup team. He played in the Masters 5 times, 3 times as an amateur. He was good. Well, he was an alcoholic. He tried to commit suicide. He was in a couple of mental hospitals, right? And so we had gone through a divorce thing. We decided not to do the divorce. We ripped up the papers. The papers never got filed in the courthouse. So I got like a whole closet full of junk, right? And I'm like, you know what? Do you want the whole world to know this story? And he said, I'm okay with that. I said, okay, then I'll go audition. So I did. And I got chosen as the token old lady, right? Which was really kind of fun. So I knew how lucky I was. And once I got done with the show, and the show aired, the next tournament up was the Hy-Vee Classic in Des Moines, Iowa. And so I applied to be on, in the tournament. I registered to play, and I didn't have to qualify because they knew who I was. So I got a sponsor's exemption. I never got a sponsor exemption, right? So it's like, oh, we want Cindy. Cindy was great on the show, right? So I'm like, oh, I got in the show. And so I get paired the first round with my buddy. And of course we tee off first because that's what happens when you suck and no one knows who you are. You're the token field filler, right? So we play first. We have a great time. She shoots 68. I shoot 71. Well, that night there was a player meeting. And we're sitting in the player meeting and everybody's talking, and, Joanne Carner, Kathy Whitworth, Nancy Lopez, all these stars. And then Cindy from Silver Creek, the one who sucks. So I raise my hand and I go, hey, are we ever going to let people that finish so much on the money list be exempt for the next year? And this girl stands up and she says, well, Cindy, our sponsors want famous people in our events. And I was like, what? And then somebody else gets up and says, what are you talking about? She's more famous than you are. She was just on that TV show. Everybody loves her. I went home that night and I was so ticked that I went to bed. I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. And I was like third to the last group out the next day. And I'm playing along and I get paired with somebody who was messing with me. Now, people might have messed with me before in tour events, and I was oblivious to it, didn't really realize that they were playing little mind games with me. Well, this was very obvious. And Alan was caddying for me and he got a little ticked off. So this girl was away on the 4th hole and I had a putt for birdie and she had a putt for par. And she goes, well, why don't you go first? Because I'm going to be standing on your marker or right near your line. And Alan's like, no, you can go. And I'm like, no, it's okay. Well, he didn't realize that this little wizard guy had always caddied for me in qualifying. And I always qualified for this event because of Jim Mitchell, who's now like 85 years old. I love this guy. And I go, no, I'll go. And Alan's like, no, let her go. I said, no, I'll go. And I'm like, we're going to have a fight on the 4th hole. And Alan never talks to anybody, but he was ready to kill this girl. So I knock the birdie putt in. She misses the par putt. And I walk to the next hole and I'm like, she was messing with me. I can't believe. So now I'm ticked off again. So I'm learning a lesson. Cindy's really good when she's ticked off. So we get to the 17th hole and I have to hit this shot up the hill and there's, hundreds of thousands of people sitting there. I hit this shot. I'm short of the green. I'm a little mad at Alan because I didn't get it on the green. I was dead short of the pin. I hit it perfect and I'm like 3 feet short. And I said, I think I should putt this. And he goes, no, I think you should chip this. You got this clump of gunk right in front of you. Well, I'm like, okay, fine. So I chipped the ball in the hole. I birdie 17. Guess what? I walked to the 18th hole, tied for the lead, having to hit a shot over water with thousands of people watching me. The same exact scenario that went through my brain a year before when I applied to be on the big break. So I'm walking to the 18th hole and Jim Mitchell, my little angel guy, grabs my hand and he goes, be brave, little girl, be brave. I get on the 18th tee and I have to hit a 5-iron, right? I hate my 5-iron. And Alan's like, suck it up. You've got this. I knock it on the green. I 2-putt for par. I'm tied for the lead. Everybody goes crazy because they now know who I am. Otherwise, they would be like, who is this? Where'd she come from? Nobody ever heard of her. So I'm waiting, thinking, am I going to be in a playoff? And then my buddy, Kitty, she birdied 17. She ends up winning by 1.
Wow.
What's the moral of the story? I defeated my demons. So the reason I did the big break was to defeat my demons, to prove to myself that the dream that I had when I was 17 years old to play on the LPGA Tour wasn't going to be a nightmare that was going to haunt me the rest of my life. So I got closure. So the reason I did the big break was not to do what I did. It was a personal reason of, Cindy, can you hit a shot with thousands of people watching you with a gun pointed at your head and your fingers on the trigger. Are you going to kill yourself or are you going to do this? And I did it. So there.
That's a great story. That's a great story. And you said that on the show. You said that, one of the comments that you made on the show was, I wanted to make it, but I didn't have to make it. You said that at the end when you were eliminated. And that really kind of segues right into what you're talking about now is you wanted to prove something. You proved it. You didn't have to be the champion. You didn't have to be Danielle. You got to the final three, and we're going to talk about that in a little right now. But you proved it. I mean, you were knocking out people. Let's just jump right into it. First, before we get into the competition, I want to find out, I want to find out, but so do our listeners and viewers. One of the quick hitter questions that fits right in here perfectly was, take us through the journey. You arrive, and then what happens? When do you meet the contestants? Do you get a practice round? People want to know all that stuff, Cindy.
You don't get anything. So I get off the plane, and this girl meets me. I never have I gotten off the plane where they stand there.
Signed.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, that's me. And so you get in a limo, you go to the hotel, take a shower. You can have something to eat in your room if you want. You can't leave your room. Get dressed up, and we'll come and get you. And then you go into this room, and that's where everybody walks in. And I think I was the second person in the room. Sarah Sassy was first. And then we all went out to dinner, and we got to know each other, and that was fun. But they don't tell you anything. You don't play a practice round. You don't even know what course you're on. You don't even play holes. You don't know. I'm like, which course was that? I still don't know which course most of the things were on.
And where did you guys go? Didn't you go to Florida first, and then they show up at Kings? I remember there's something different at the beginning, right?
Yeah. And this private jet. So we went to Orlando.
That's right.
I don't remember if they showed that part. We went to Orlando, and then I met this guy, TJ Hubbard. I love TJ, and now he's in Seattle, but he worked at the Golf Channel. And so we stayed at one of the Rosen hotels, I think. And then they said, get up really early the next morning, and they took us to the airport. We went to SeaWorld, and then you get on a plane, and I'm like, where are we going now? What are we doing? So again, you were totally out of control. We get on this private jet, and I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool, right? And then we land, and they're all there for us, and then they swoop you off. You were just so special. It was awesome. But no, we didn't play the golf course. We didn't even know where we were. Jeez. Totally out of control. But it's like, shut up and suck it up and hang out with it, right? And it was like, this is fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's talk about the actual competition. I really want to get into the end when it comes down to you and Danielle and Pamela and talk a little bit about that. But before we get there, let's talk about you were winning immunity after immunity. And the first immunity, I remember, was a skills challenge. You win it. That's got to take the pressure off, right? You're day 2 or something in. I think day 1, nobody's eliminated the next day. So, and you win it, and you're done for the day. I mean, that might be the secret to winning Big Break, is winning immunities, because some people might say, well, I need to play golf, but man, that's a long day and less pressure. That was the secret. No, was that the way to go?
That was the secret. And I'm not whining, but I'm going to tell you that my whole life, number one, you've never been good enough. And number 2, you're a pioneer. I mean, I watched other shows, and they were making 5, 10, 20 grand for an immunity and winning all these prizes. Oh. And I will never forget this. Pam said, we went in the pro shop, and there was a Big Break hat or something from Kings Mill that she wanted, and that she had to buy it. We got nothing. Except experience. And that's priceless.
Yeah.
You learned how not to choke. So shut up. That's why you came. But yes, immunities were very important. And it was so nice to be able to say, oh, wow, now I can chill out. I don't have to worry, you're going to go home now. So it was great.
So let's talk. I want to talk about that for a second, because it came up during the conversation with some other people from the earlier episodes. I was talking to Toph Peterson, and Jimmy had won his season, and he was talking about Jimmy's package was in excess of $180,000 with prizes and gifts and $50,000 in cash and Dick's Sporting Goods and Travelocity and all these things that he ended up, winning through the whole competition, and Adams Golf. And I mean, tons and tons. They went in and they actually filmed it. When they went in, they had their bags lined up, and then they had a table full of towels and hats and shirts for Adams Golf. That, that didn't happen on Big Break 3, right?
Well, we did get a duffel bag of stuff with the logo on it, but nobody got any money. No extra prizes. I got a golf bag. I didn't get any golf clubs. No, I mean, again, we were the pioneers. It was
no, there's no doubt.
At that time, nobody made any money, but again, that had to happen. So that's just shut up. That's where you were born in the world and the life. So that's where it is. And it's okay.
So let's talk about the flop shot. So you first get there, you hear about it. I'm sure you weren't practicing at home, shooting over your house or something on a flop shot. When you walk up to, everybody can, that at your level can shoot or can make a flop shot, but you stand in front of a wall. What's your first impression of that? It's got to be a little daunting, especially when all the cameras are on and everybody's watching.
Well, again, it's clenched butt cheeks,
Yeah.
And so once you recognize that it's clenched butt cheeks, you say, okay, stop. That's not going to help you. What are you going to do to get the ball over this wall? And you have to focus on the task at hand, right? Which is why I did the show, to test Cindy. Can she do what she needs to do and shift states and stop thinking the wrong thoughts and think the right thoughts?
Well, let's talk about what you did. So your first shot, you shot to 4 feet. And your second shot, you shot to 3 feet, 7 inches. And by the way, the second shot, they moved the shot closer to the wall, which makes it more difficult. And then your third shot, they not only were closer, but they added to the height of the wall. And then you shot at 2 feet, 7 inches on your third shot. So the difficulty is increasing and your distance is decreasing. That's pretty impressive. And you finished second to, I forgot who, but you finished second on that one. That's pretty impressive. That's getting it done, right?
It is. I don't know if I could do that now.
Well, that was really impressive. Really impressive.
Thank you.
Then you go into, so let me talk about the weather for a second. You guys it seemed every time I was watching an episode, it was raining or it was windy or it was cold. And you said it was filmed in October timeframe. So that was, it's fall and moving towards winter. How did that affect the play? Did some people complain more about it? Or you guys just dealt with it because that's golf?
No, some people complained about it more, but I'm from Buffalo.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm used to that.
That was a blessing.
Yeah.
This is nice out. Are you kidding me?
It's beautiful out here today. Yeah. Let's talk about the elimination. So you end up going into elimination against Danielle. It's a 3-hole challenge. Take us through your thoughts on how that went. Do you remember all of it? Do you?
Well, if I hadn't seen the reruns, I would not have remembered it. But I remember now the day when they said this is a long drive contest. I was like, oh, it's time to get rid of Cindy. And to be honest with you, they couldn't have scripted it any better. It needed to end the way it ended, so it was perfect. So I was like, bye, I'll see you guys later. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. But I must tell you, and you might want to ask me something about this later, but it was supposed to happen the way it happened. Danielle had hit some shots that I was like, okay, how did that happen? Mm-hmm. So when she hit that bunker shot in the 3-hole playoff, hit the pin and came back down, I'm like, you kidding me? She just scalded over the green. I would have won. Mm-hmm. Again, it's okay. It wasn't supposed to. I wanted to win, but I didn't have to win, and it was fine. So, who's the better player? I think you're looking at her. Yeah. But it's okay because that's what was supposed to happen.
So let's discuss that a little bit. I think that, and I think from the feedback we got from our listeners and viewers, that a lot of people felt that the better story, and I would agree, good cop, bad cop, villain, that kind of thing, that's where it should have ended up. There was another, interestingly, the feedback we got that thought the story would have been, forget those two. Let the old lady, right, come through and win this whole thing. And you had a lot of people thinking that when you went through and and got to third that I think a lot of people were pulling for you. I mean, I think you were the fan favorite, at least from the surveys that we've done. And it was, we didn't survey 20 people. We had 650, responses. So, and we got a lot of them pulling for your way. I agree with you. It probably makes for better TV because of that tension between those two. The other thing I want to ask you is, Pam was a good player. I mean, Pam early in the show got knocked that she's this. You don't know. You're not a tour player. You don't know. You're just out. You hit it long. She did more than hit it long. I mean, she chipped one in. She was good around the green. She was a decent putter. She can play a little bit, couldn't she?
Yes, without a doubt. I mean, like, let me have her for a year, and she'll be making money on the tour. Yes.
I have a quick question about Pam before we move into what happened post big break, because a lot of people ask this. Wrong show for this one because we're talking about ladies only, but a lot of people wanted to know from you, did you feel that Pam was not the same competitor in Reunion as she was in Big Break because she was not playing golf anymore, because she had a family? And it seemed like when she left Reunion, and she left, right? She walked off the show. That she just had enough of all of it. Fair?
Fair.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah, she was, I know I'm with you. That's it. That's just wanted confirmation of that. We don't want our perceptions to not be reality. And we had a lot of questions about that. And it wasn't a bad thing. Look, I don't want to deal with the drama, and I just, I got a husband and kids, and I want to just get out, so it is what it is. All right. So let's talk about, you get done, you finish third. That's a win, right? We talk about this. That's a win all day long.
Are you kidding me?
But you say that I want to talk about this for a second. If you said you were the token, old lady, I hate to say that about you, but
it's true. It's okay.
Yeah, but I mean, come on. But you also, it's not like you went and you hit a 30-foot putt and went, oh my God, it went in. You were a player. It's not like, you know what I mean? You dominated in many episodes. You dominated, and you proved it in your worth of the immunity, winning all those immunities. And just hit me right now thinking about all the money that they gave to the immunities in the later shows. You would have ranked in the toe, 5,000 here, 4,000 there. And they didn't go, that's terrible. I'll be your agent next time if there's another reunion. But I don't want to minimize. You played well enough to win this whole thing. You know that, right?
I do. So again, when I went to the audition, I'm looking around, we're at Shingle Creek, and I'm definitely the token old lady. And all these cute little 24-year-olds with their little short skirts, and me with my cellulite, right? And so they call me over and they say, okay, it's your turn. You need to hit these shots. And they said, okay, so I want you to fly it at that pin. And I said, well, how far is it? It's 100 yards. I said, do you want me to end it there, or do you want me to fly it there? And the kid goes, excuse me? I said, well, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to end it there or fly it there? Oh, well, end it there. I said, okay, so I do. And he goes, wow, you're pretty good. And so it's funny because when I go to the PGA show, I have our daughter who's really pretty, and she works at the Golf Channel now. And she's like my lure, because everybody looks at her and they don't pay any attention to me, right? And then they're like, oh, wait, who's that, right? So in the interview, they said, put your name up. I'm Cindy Miller from Silver Creek, New York. And well, what do you shoot? And I said, gee, that's funny you ask. I'm just won the LPGA National Teaching Championship. I shot 71, 68, 72, or whatever I shot. And I'm thinking to myself, you can shoot 85 just as fast as the next person. This is amazing that you just won this tournament. This is all like being laid out in front of me. So it's supposed to happen. So they ask me all these questions. And then they ask, Cindy, if there's a room full of producers sitting watching this interview, why should they pick you? And I was like, they slapped me. I said, why should they pick me? I'll tell you why they should pick me. I played on the tour 25 years ago, the best in the world. I was one of the worst. I just won the LPGA National Teaching Championship. I'm married to a PGA Tour player, played in the Masters 5 times. I got news for you. I might be the light of this show. This could be a miracle story. That's why you should pick me. And the minute I shut up, I was like, whoa, you just told them off. You just blew it. You're done. And so When I lost, they called me 2 weeks later and said, now you have to sign a confidentiality agreement, blah, blah, blah. And when I lost, I walked over to Jay Kossoff, the senior producer of the whole thing. I gave him a big hug and he whispered in my ear, "You were the light of the whole show."
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool.
And and that was like 6 months later. I never even remembered that I had done that.
That's really cool story. So, and they loved you so much, they brought you back for the reunion. Did you play in the Invitational too? Didn't you play in that kind of tour thing? Or no, you didn't? Okay.
They don't love me that much.
Yeah, sure. All right. Now the show ends. You go back home. It premieres. Did you have a watch party? Did you? You can't say anything. Tell us a little bit about
at the Buffalo Brew Pub, sucking it up.
Were you having? Oh wait. Let me see. My friend from North Tonawanda, Mulligan's Brick Bar. We used to go to Mulligan's Brick.
Oh my God! I used to work at Mulligan's.
You're kidding? Is that
the beach club
where they used to put the nuts on the floor and they would and they'd OV splits and dump the ice on the top? Is that?
Who's your friend?
Sean Murphy, and his brother Shane. They're twins out of North Tonawanda.
Michael Militello owns the Mulligan's.
Yeah, those were the days. So you go back there, and I can imagine Buffalo because they love their Bills too, and their fan bases.
We're very good at partying.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So you had some watch parties, and then were people impressed? Were people surprised about your performance?
I mean, God, yes. Yeah, like Cindy, really? I mean, that was what was so fun about it because you probably, oh, who's she? She's not supposed to win, and that's like, oh, she's back.
That's awesome.
It was so fun. I was so grateful and so lucky to do it.
So tell everyone what you're up to today.
Okay. So again, I've got a great story of overcoming obstacles and breaking barriers my whole life. I've always been told I'm not good enough. When I wanted to go to the University of Miami, they said, you're not good enough. You can walk on the team, but you'll probably never play. My dad told me I had 1 year to earn a scholarship or I would have to come home because they couldn't afford it. So I never even visited the school. I got dropped off at my dorm by a family friend who was a pilot who lived in Coral Gables, Florida. I sat on the bed and I cried, right? So then I got up and then I hit balls and then I graduated the number 1 player on the team. So every time I've tried to do anything, it's like, well, you're not good enough. So Alan and I were going to get divorced. We ended up not getting divorced. I ended up starting a shirt business. I ended up making shirts for the Masters, right? So stuff that you would never think, and it was never premeditatedly planned. It was always birthed by somebody saying, you can't do this. So I did. So now I've created a thing. And well, let me back it up. We went to a seminar where a woman was talking about how her husband drove her nuts. And I sat up and I go, I got one of them, right? and so she had written a book called Personality Plus. So of course, as soon as she was done talking, I ran to the back of the room, bought the book. In the book was a personality assessment. So I took the assessment for me. And of course I took it for Alan because he's helpless and can't help himself, right? And then I sat there reading off all of his weaknesses to him. And I had a delayed intelligence attack. And I said, oh my God, you can't help yourself. I thought you acted like this on purpose just to drive me nuts. So to put it in context, I'm Suzanne Pedersen and Tiger Woods, and Alan Miller is Ernie Els and Jason Duffner, right? He's just Mr. Chill. Mm-hmm. He hits 1,000 fairways and 1,000 greens and 2 putts every hole. And that's why I fell in love with him. I'm like, oh my God, this guy could teach me how to swing. So now I've created this thing called the It Box. And I challenge people to own it. So there's 3 things in the box. I've gotten certified in behavior, motivation, and emotional intelligence and judgment and what makes people change. The first thing in the box, if you choose to own it, is a nail. And the nail signifies pain. And there was a story of this traveling salesman driving down the road. He was looking for the Agway plant and he got lost. And he saw this driveway, pulled down the driveway. There was a farmer sitting on the porch smoking his pipe with a black lab laying next to him. So he gets out of the car and he says, forgive me, but I got lost. Can you help me get where I'm going? So the farmer gives him directions and he notices the dog is whining. It's like, and he's like, I wonder what's wrong with the dog. He doesn't ask him. He leaves. He says, thank you so much. He's walking back to his car and he hears the dog going, And he turns around and he asks the farmer, he says, forgive me, but I have to ask you, what's the matter with your dog? He says, oh, nothing. He's laying on a nail. He said, well, why doesn't he get up? He said, because it doesn't hurt bad enough. So if you choose to pursue your it, you have to get up off the nail and stop whining. That's the first thing in the box. Second thing in the box is a mirror. So once you know why you're here, are you motivated by seeking reward, or are you trying to stop the pain? You have to be willing to look in the mirror. Who am I? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What am I supposed to do? Why was I born? That's the second thing in the box. And the third thing in the box is a tiny little seed. So once you know why you're here and you're willing to look in the mirror and you want to do something, you have to plant a seed. So when we were going through all of these challenges, I was going to lots of different counselors, and most of them were bad, stupid, waste of money. And I happen to be a Christian, even though I swear like a truck driver. And I was sitting in a Christian counselor's office, and I was whining, crying, and blaming Alan for everything. And the tears are dripping down my face, and the boogers are going in my mouth, and I don't have any Kleenex. So the guy gets up and he goes, "Let me go get you some toilet paper." And he comes back and he hands me the wad of toilet paper, and he said, "Cindy, the Lord told me to tell you something." I looked at him like, "Oh, really? What did he tell you?" He said, "He told me to tell you that he's planted a seed in your life, and you need to stop digging it up to see if it's growing."
Wow.
You need to water it. You need to put it in the light, and you need to nurture it. And if you do, there's no telling how good it can end. So I now travel around doing corporate training and speaking engagements, teaching people how to own it. So shut up, stop whining, get off the nail, look in the mirror, and plant a seed. And if you do, there's no telling how good it can end.
That's impressive. And I want to ask you how everybody can get in touch with you regarding that in a second. But one of the things about motivational speakers, and my background is in boring stuff that pays well, right? Technology and software. And that's what I did for 25 years. And then I said, I want to have fun with the rest of my life, and I got to get out of that. It's always about the effect of people that interact with you. Yours is about owning it yourself. You decide your own path, your course. And I love that. That sound, it's not about how does this affect you or this stimulus affect you. It's all about yourself. And that's awesome. How could everybody find out about the It Box?
Well, you can email me, cindy@cindymillerinc.com. And if you want to take a free assessment to figure out who you are, you can go to cindymillerinc.com/better. So I help people that want to get better, not whiners. cindymillerinc.com/better if you want to take an assessment.
And is it anonymous so you don't see Nick Marola in here in about 30 minutes when we're done with this thing?
No, and you know what? Here's the deal. We're all made, again, once I realized this, Alan Miller is brilliant. He's the second purest ball striker Dave Pell's ever tested. He's a nice guy. He just happened to drive me crazy, and I drive him crazy. Once you expose the elephant and reveal the truth, it becomes funny.
Yeah.
Use each other for your strengths. So once you know who you are, you stop blaming everyone else. Then you're not a victim anymore. And you know what else? I was shoving a mirror in my husband's face forever. And once I decided to do the big break and qualify for the Legends Tour and put the mirror in my face, everything in our household changed. I wasn't blaming him anymore.
Yeah.
Take responsibility and accountability for your own life. And if you do, everything can change.
I love it. Last question for you. And like I said, we're going to have you back for the reunion live stream. We're going to have just a Q&A session with our listeners and viewers. And we're going to have about 5 or 6 panelists like yourself and just take those questions. And we'll do that. But my last question to you is another thing that you said when you left, and you've articulated many things about your feelings post and pre big break. You said that you didn't win, but you learned about Cindy. And you said it a couple times, actually, as you were doing your walk of whatever. I don't call it a walk of shame but you asked you said, I didn't win, but I learned a lot about Cindy. What did you learn about Cindy? I mean, you mentioned a lot of things already, but anything you want to encapsulate?
Yeah, Cindy can achieve a lot of things. And Cindy needs to be proud of Cindy. And Cindy is good enough. That's what I learned. Cindy's good enough. This dream of being a tour player, when I was 17 years old, when I saw Laura Baugh playing in an LPGA event, that wasn't a nightmare that was going to haunt me the rest of my life. It's what I'm supposed to do. That's awesome. I'm very proud of me. And again, if you're willing to look in the mirror and defeat demons, now you're making me cry. there's no telling what you can achieve. So that's what I learned. It's like, Cindy, you're good enough.
Well, what we all learned about Cindy Miller was she was good enough, and you performed well in golf, and you're obviously performing well in life, and we wish you the best. We look forward to seeing you back on the reunion show. I can tell you from our responses from the surveys, everyone out there loves you and cares about you. And so I really want to work that out with you so you can come back during that time. Cindy Miller, thank you for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Nick. It was a lot of fun. Thanks.
Thanks. Take care. All right. Thank you very much.
Well, that was fun.
Oh, that was awesome.
Too long.
That's good. That was awesome. That was really, really good. And I love your stories, and I will contact you back. I want to get a couple of folks from the reunion. We had a lot of questions about the reunion show, and I figured, when I talked to Don just to set up his interview, he was like, I'll do it, but he'll, so I want to get a few of you guys on. So I'll be in touch.
I lost first though. And again, so
That's
you
all right.
can see the difference. And one of them, I was supposed to be there, and the other one, it was like, ugh.
Yeah.
Well, there's all part that was my partner who was trying to hit on me. I'm like, oh my God.
That dynamic we had. It was Gary, right? I think it was Gary. There's a lot of questions about that, because in those interviews, he's blaming you about, the shots and the number of shots for breaking the glass. And
up, you asshole.
I'm like, but she can play. We know she can play. We're not sure you can. So let's slow down with your criticisms of.
So then he loses, and then I'm stuck there for 2 weeks, right? And I'm like, oh, and again, control, right?
Yeah.
So I have to play golf with him every day. I'm like, all right, now I have to kick your ass. So I did, and they're going out to dinner every night, having 3, all these bottles of wine. I'm like, can I go get a massage? No, that's too expensive. I go, excuse me? I don't even drink. Take my drinking allowance and let me go have a massage, please.
Oh, God.
So, yeah. But again, it's okay because you learn.
Yeah. All right. Well, you'll hear from us in a couple of weeks, and then you'll hear from me regarding the reunion live stream show. So
Thanks,
we'll talk
honey.
to you soon. Thanks. Take care.
Have a great day.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye.